Okay, so we're recording. Welcome, everybody. This is another one of our installment in our series where we're chatting with various watch brands. I'm Kathleen McGivney, CEO of RedBar, Adam Craniotes, founder of RedBar, and then Dave Sharp from our London, Edinburgh, and Glasgow chapters. So David, I'll just kick it to you to introduce our guest today.
Hi everyone, so today we are doing our Zoom panel with the guys from anOrdain, which is a brand that is close to me in the respect that they're from my hometown of Glasgow in Scotland. And today we will have with us Lewis. I think Lewis can say hello. And Lewis is the, he doesn't like titles, but we'll call him brand owner to give you some context. And we also have Nikki, who is one of the enamelers. And I think the plan today is that Nikki is going to give us a tour of the workshop. He's social distancing on his own in the workshops, and he has relegated Lewis to sitting in his car, which seems like the boss relationship's the wrong way around here. But hey, and then Lou, I think we're going to have a bit of a demo of how the enameling process works and go through some kind of procedures and steps. Hopefully, you can all see the video of the workbench there, and we will be making that into full screen during the process so everyone can follow it. Please remember, everyone, chat away in the chat, but if you've got any kind of specific questions that you wish asked, please use the Q&A button at the bottom to ask the questions. And if at any point any of us start talking too quickly and too Scottish, feel free to tell us to slow down and speak English. So with that, I'll maybe pass over to Nikki, who I think is going to start off by giving us a bit of a tour of the workshop.
Yeah, cool. So hopefully this will, if you can, am I on my moving screen? Yeah, cool, okay. So can you still hear me as well?
Oh, yes.
Cool. Okay, so we'll start off.
Should we be seeing where he's going, do you think?
We can see where he's going.
Yeah, it's probably on.
Have you got more screens? Ah, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
Gotcha.
I can no longer hear him though.
You wouldn't understand him anyway.
I understand him quite well.
Oh, I think it's because his audio is on his computer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Let's.
Please hold viewers for the technical problems.
It's all right.
All right, there we go.
Is it working out?
Yes.
Feedback.
Feedback.
Zoom feedback is always a fun one.
Okay, stop. Cool. So this is the, as I was saying, this is the watchmakers and packaging area. So any watches that are sent out, if you've received one from us, Erland packages and sends from out here, and then Chris, our head watchmaker, works at this bench, and then we also have Ewan, who's our apprentice, who works here. Got some model ones. New model ones laid out, and
These are gorgeous colors. Wow.
Blue.
Really
I'll bring those back. I'll bring those through so we can kind of see them closer later on. So yeah, that's kind of it. Through this door here is the design studio, so that's where all the business goes down for the designs and the case designs. So yeah, and then
that's the secret room.
That's a secret room, yeah.
I think that's the messy room, actually, Dave. That's why it's not. He tied the other two.
And then, yeah, this is where I spend my week along with Morna and Sally. So the three of us working here. We have our metal working bench. So this is where we do any metal work in terms of cutting out dial blanks, trimming new stamps that we've received in terms of prototypes, things like that, as well as soldering on the dial feet. So that's all done there. Normally we work around this central bench, but tonight I've got obviously my little setup over here so that you can see and buy the kiln as well. So yeah, normally we have another kiln set up here, but that's currently in my living room, which I'm using to glue hands. So yeah, that's currently taking up my my living room table. And then here we have our lovely enamel wall. So this is all our sample enamels come in for us to try out. We begun making these kind of test plates. So this is the enamel over different colours. So you've got it over white first, then copper, and then different fluxes at the end. So yeah, test them all out, try and get colours so that we can see, as you can see, the powder to the enamel is not always the same. So we have to kind of test them out. And then our sinks where we do all our sanding and polishing, and our two lapping machines which help us not break our backs sanding all the time. So yeah, that's pretty much the studio in a very, very quick tour. But I'll kind of show bits more as I demonstrate, I guess, which is probably best. Let's see if I can.
So Lewis, maybe when he's setting up, you could give us a bit of a background of the brand and kind of where you've come from and where you're going to.
Yeah. So this is actually our 5th year of operating as a studio. We launched in 2018. So we spent 3 years developing the enamel aspect of it, because it's quite tricky, and it took some time. And then we launched Model 1 in middle of 2018. And at that time, I think there were 3 of us. There was myself, Adam, and Imogen. So 1 enameler and 1 typographer. And now there are 10 of us. So there's 5/6 people in the production team. That's between watchmakers and the 3 enamelers. And then obviously Imogen, still myself, and Evan and Ewan, so we cover kind of design and engineering and photography and website and all that stuff. So the idea behind anOrdain is that we're like, everyone's kind of in the same place, and you've got this sort of mixture of making things and designing things. And what I'd kind of, before I started this, what I'd found is that if you're a designer and you really understand how things are made, then, and you're present in that process, then some really interesting stuff can come out of it, because you're like, things mostly don't work out. You know, if you have an idea for something, you try it, normally or often doesn't work, but the things that come out of it not working are often much more interesting than what you had in mind in the beginning. So with the enameling, for example, we like the Fumet dolls that we've done, they are, I mean, we've called them Fumet because they look similar to other, like what you'd normal Fumet dolls, but they're actually, the process is completely different. They are, I think one company does, I think AP do a Fumet doll, but they do it by mixing enamel. So they got enamel around the outside of one color and then a different enamel in the middle. But the way we've done it is that we kind of dome the inside so that the metal underneath raises up in the inside. I mean, we're talking about between this maybe, Nikki, actually, how much difference is in height? There's not very much. It's like from 0.4 of a millimeter
about 0.7 of a mil, I think, max.
Yeah. I mean, the whole gradient is maybe a third between the top and bottom. It's fractions of a millimeter. But we came across that because they started working with silver as a dial base rather than copper, and one of the issues they had was the warping, and the
Which
first
is this dial here.
I still got it, yeah. Oh, you got it on the other page.
Yeah, so this is.
So that was meant to be a blue dial, just straight blue, but it rose up in the middle because the heat, the way the heat affected it. And it looked nice. I mean, we couldn't use it as a watch style because the underneath was caved in, and so there was issues there. But we thought, well, if we can get that, if we can sort of replicate that, perfectly symmetrically, and so it's flat, then we'd be onto something. So we started playing with that, and it was actually the Struthers watchmakers down in Birmingham who put us in touch with a really good die stamper who has helped us make the blank for that. So that he's formed this design, which
this is actually the first version of it we got in copper, so you can't see it as well because the dark background. But
yeah. So that was the first one, and you can see that we've missed it by a fraction of a millimeter, but the copper's come through the top. So when he's polished down, then it doesn't really work. But we refined that over quite a few iterations, and then it came out like that. But that was something that if we'd been working with a factory and said, can you do as a two-tone watch style, they would have done it a different way, or they would have tried it and it wouldn't have worked. But because we were there and we were seeing the possibilities, then and obviously because we've got the engineer in house and the sort of graphics people, that everyone sees things differently, and you come up with some interesting stuff. So that's how most things come about, is we try and do one thing and it doesn't work and you end up doing something else. So yeah.
Excellent. So maybe are you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm good to go. So if anyone has seen us wind up or anywhere, they've probably seen we have two boards that kind of very quickly explain the stages that we go through. So I thought kind of be good to show that in person. So yeah, we start off with this, which is just a basic blank copper disc, so the first process is to clean it up, so get rid of any kind of grease or anything from that, and we put on a counter enamel. So if anyone saw the limited edition we did at the end of the first run of Model 1, that's actually the enamel that's on the top of that is what we use as our counter. So this is to kind of counteract the forces that go on between the expansion and contraction between the glass and the metal. So that's the first thing that happens. And then from there, we go to starting to put on the enamel. So at the minute, we've put most of our enamel on wet. So it's just held in distilled water, and we apply it with a paintbrush, and you're just putting on kind of very, very thin layers. So just going to plop it on. This is my method of choice. The three of us do it in different ways.
That sounds like a typically Scottish technical phrase. We just plop it on.
Yeah, a lot of technical phrases are thrown around the studio these days. So. Yeah, and then it's just a case of spreading it out, and we're trying to create as even a layer as we can, and also kind of as uniform a layer as we can. If you put it on too thick or too thin, you can end up with bubbles and kind of effects that you don't really want. So we go through that process and just kind of spread it out. I won't do the whole dial because it takes a while, but you can kind of get the idea that we spread it out, and then we then pop it on top of the kiln to dry it out. So I have one in true Blue Peter style, one I did before. So here you can see that the powder has now completely kind of dried out, and we're now ready to go into the kiln. So I don't know if maybe you want to go to my other camera and you can see that happening. So yeah, this each enamel kind of takes a different amount of time. It's dependent on how hard it is, how soft it is. So that's kind of when we're trying them out, that's what we're testing. What's the best firing time? What's the best temperature? To kind of get the look that we want. So don the safety equipment to keep us stop our eyes from burning.
What kind of temperature does the kiln run at?
So we're generally running between 800 and 900 degrees Celsius. So like it does fluctuate. When you open the kiln, it drops. So you kind of aim higher and work out a kind of how much it drops and then how long it takes to climb again. And we're generally only firing for between like a minute and a half to 2 minutes maximum, really. So it's quite quick, but the firing's quick, but you then have to leave it and let it cool down. You can't really touch it or fiddle with it then, apart from it being close and hot, and you kind of disturb it and it starts to do funny things that you then have to fix later on. So this is the bit where you have to just stand and wait around. So this is a lot of our day. It's just keeping a close eye on the time, keeping a close eye on the temperature, making sure that it's not spiking or doing something strange.
Yeah.
And is this very much a one-by-one process, or do you do batches?
Yeah. So we do one by one. So that's why we have multiple kilns, so that we are all kind of on a rotation and we kind of know what each other is doing. And generally we'll work on probably 3 or 4 dials. So kind of this is the kind of situation. You have one that you're applying enamel to, one that's dry and ready to go in the kiln, and you've got one kind of cooling down. So you're continually going through that cycle.
So it's true to say that these really are one-off pieces. Each one is individual.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, so yeah, every one is completely unique. There'll be the tiniest of flecks that are different because the enamel might have a kind of slight speckle to it or things like that. So yeah, so then once it's out, just leave it to cool, and then we repeat that process. So that's done until we reach our thickness, which sometimes you'll think you're at height and you need to kind of sand, go back again, do another layer, all these sorts of things. But once we're ready, we either do it by hand or on the lapping wheels as I showed you, and then we go back to. Then you end up with this really nice flat surface, which is what we're looking for. So once we reach this point, again, it's a cleaning process. Make sure we get rid of all the grime and the fingerprints and all that, and rinse it in some distilled water again, and then it goes back into the kiln for what we call final fire. So this generally runs a little bit longer. You're taking it to a slightly higher temp, but a little bit longer, so it gets a little bit hotter, and you should ideally end up with a really nice gloss finish, something like this one, which I did earlier today. So at that point, it's a case of making sure that there isn't any kind of final imperfections. There might be a tiny bubble that you didn't notice, or a fleck may have landed on it while it was cooling and it's ingrained, or different things like that. But ideally then it's at the right thickness and it's ready to have the dial feet applied. So from there we then end up working on the back, and this is where we apply our dial feet. So they are just soldered on, and a lot of patience and a lot of practice. I think more dials ended up in the box of shame, as we like to call it, than I would like to admit. But yeah, a lot of cracking and working out how to do it best, what's the best temperature. If you solder it for too long, it can start to kind of fuse the enamel again, so it kind of sinks into the soldering block, which isn't fun. But yeah, from there we then go on to our printing. So we print in two stages for all of the model ones. So we first print. So yeah, the outer ring goes on first, depending on what color we're choosing for that, and then the hour numerals are then applied. And this one's actually back because the anOrdain logo is a little bit not quite right. So it's like these like minute things that we're kind of paying attention to at the end, their quality control. Obviously we're checking it the whole way through, but it can go wrong at any point, even as late as being put in the case. The watchmaker can have a slip and put a little scratch in it or something like that that we weren't planning on happening, and then it's back to us to fix it and start again. Or you can do things like I did myself, and I don't know if I was able to see, but I'd stuck my tweezers in it while it was still hot and put a little dent on the edge, you can see there. So it was a perfect dial, and I went and stuck my tweezers in it because I was being careless. So yeah, that one's written off. But yeah, I was pretty sure it's pad printer, just in case anyone is wondering what that is. So yeah, this is the machine beside me here. So we have various quiches with different. This one's the whole print together so that you could see it. But yeah, it's basically this is a pneumatic arm that comes across, spreads the ink across it, and then the pad drops down, picks it up, pulls forward, and then drops it down onto the dial, which is sat there. And then yeah, we send them over to Chris to then put them and assemble them into the watch, and yeah, that's pretty much how a dial is made from start to finish, without any of the frustration that we have. So yeah.
Cool, thanks, Nicky. Do you want to maybe show us some of the dials, the different ones you've got in the studio for any?
Yeah, like so obviously, as we were saying, the Fumet Model 2 Fumet is kind of one that everyone's seen, but we've begun work on the Model 1 Fumet. So the Sally's actually this has been her main project for the last wee while. So we've had this one. So this is a red that we're kind of trying out.
That's very pretty.
So yeah.
Can you get it really close to the camera? Because maybe it's just my phone, but hard to see.
Let's switch the lights off.
No, that's still kind of hard to see.
Yeah, I think it's darker. Maybe, yeah, you just got to tilt it around.
Yeah, just tilt it a little. There you go.
There.
Yeah.
That's
so yeah. So that's kind of, this one was actually, well, how we thought it would work is how it worked, which isn't normally the case in these situations. So yeah, we had to kind of work out how the gradient would work, and then kind of how it would shallow out again so that we could get a nice area for the printing to sit on. So yeah, that was, those colors we're not certain on yet. We're still kind of playing around with those. Got things like experiments in terms of, this is actually a Fumet, but it's in a very clear white. And so you're actually seeing the silver all underneath, and the numerals are floating above, but it wasn't quite what we were going for. You don't get that feel of the Fumet. So yeah, things like that. And then this is kind of the one that's been most testing us at the minute. This is for Model 3, which is actually going to be a bit smaller, but this is what's called the Champlavet, so, or roughly. So the numerals that you can see are actually stamped into the metal. So they're actually silver, and they're coming through.
Wow.
Yeah, this is a really lovely one.
That's amazing, yeah.
Yeah, it's shockingly blue.
But you have issues with, like I was talking, expansion and contraction. You've created all these little cells, like inside the 6, the zeros. So the silver and the enamel want to expand and contract at different rates. So you end up with these like tiny hairline cracks if you don't have it right. So we had to kind of work on work with our die maker to get the right draft angles, and the right thickness of wall, and all these things that in paper or in your mind it's going to be fine. Also finding the right enamel that's hard enough to hold it, but not too hard that it causes it to warp. So yeah, these are the kind of things that we're playing with and trying to work out. We do also then have the box of shame that I mentioned before, which is pretty hefty. I think there's...
Sorry, I have a question about, like, so during this, I'm sure regular production, the number is smaller than this, but like during a trial and error when you're trying to create a new file, about what percentage of those dials end up in the box of shame?
It depends on what color, but like the Champ-Levé ones to begin with, probably all of them. They're in their own little box, but we all keep a kind of diary and kind of keep detailed notes. So every failure actually is like a benefit, because you find out what not to do. But for that, a lot of these ones are just kind of, I think Sally got them last week. So these are very recent that we've managed to kind of jump a hurdle. And that's kind of what happens. We'll hit a wall for a while and get stuck, and then we talk to someone or try something else, or if someone has a light bulb moment, and then we can kind of move forward. And in terms of our normal dials now, yeah, I would say it's probably a 90% success rate.
Okay.
It's worth pointing out, I think, when you look at, like, when you think of enameling and you think of the Swiss marketing videos or whatever, or when they go and visit a Swiss manufacturer for this, they have these big kind of bread trays of dials. So you put 12 or 16 at a time, and then they pull them out and they say that 80% don't work. But we do it. Our method is just very different to that, in that the guys work on one at a time, and they kind of make sure it works rather than putting a load in and hoping one or the two come out all right. So it's just a different technique in terms of that.
And we can tell, like, what is, like, they all have certain, like, they'll do certain things, and when it starts to do that thing, what to do to counteract it, or what you have to do to fix it, rather than go, oh, it's gone. There is like, generally every dial can be saved, unless you do something like I did, stick a tweezer in it or something like that.
That's actually, we have a question in the Q&A that actually kind of nicely segues to that topic, from Amy. Have you discovered a way of recovering a crack in the enamel? If it cracks during a later firing or in the sanding process, can it be salvaged, or do you have to start again?
So yes and no. Depending on when it cracks, you can just, if it's kind of while you're building layers, it's fine, because you're adding more enamel on, and it will fuse. If it happens when printing, no, because we've attached the dial feet. There's a lot of other pros that have gone through it. It's at a certain height, and it's probably take us a lot longer to fix it than to start again. But yeah, you can. Certain cracks are just like so minute that if you give it a good clean and wash and fire it, it will fuse back. But yeah, it's kind of, each crack is different. I mean, sometimes it will just fuse back together. Sometimes it will create a big crater, and it just depends how clean it is.
We have another question. What can you do with the dials in the box of shame if not throw them away? Do you guys ever make other things out of them, or wear them as earrings, or something like that? I mean, they conceivably could be made some other kind of art project or something like that. Have you ever done anything like that?
We've always spoke about kind of putting them on the wall, but all our wall space is kind of used at the minute.
Erland sent them out as Christmas cards last year, I think. He sent lots of them out as Christmas cards, so there were tree decorations, which was quite nice.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, it seemed like a good use for them. We couldn't think what else to do with them, but there are several of those boxes. It's not just the one, so we've got a lot of them.
So that's where all the profit went, Lewis.
It is, yeah. In the post.
Could we see the watches that you had that were on your watchmaker?
Yeah.
Mm.
And we'll pause for a moment while that get retrieved. But I really wanted to see those because there's some lovely colors. Let me switch back to your other camera. Hold on one sec. Okay.
So yeah, obviously at the minute, because our watchmakers are actually have the majority of stock is when it's coming to the studio, it's going straight out. So these are some samples. This is only colors that we have, but yeah. So this is the Paris blue that I've been working on today.
Nikki, sorry, can you put it through the lights, the magnifying lights? Is that possible?
Yeah.
That'd be if it's a long way away, don't worry. It might help.
I don't know if it will reach.
Yeah, it's a bit. I mean, it's
hard to see. Yeah.
Challenge with reflections with enamel dials anyway, but yeah.
Let's go back to tail. Dusty.
Quite the detailed studio tour here.
Well, and thank you, Nicholas, for being so accommodating.
Appreciate it.
You know, you're our man on the spot there, so we appreciate it. Oh, I'm gonna shut up now because I got to look at this.
Yeah, that is wow. That is stunning.
Well, what does it always say? Gimme.
Yeah,
give me that.
That is beautiful. What? I'm sorry. Can you remind me of the name of it again? You said you.
Okay, so this is the Paris blue.
The Model 1.
Model 1.1. With straw hands. So this is what I've been doing at home has been working on the blue and straw hands.
Yeah, that's an interesting one because that's something we started making these hands in ourselves for this model, and Nikki has been very good at heat treating them because we thought it'd be nice to have fix the color, before it got to the blue, and turns out it's quite hard to do. So
that is a beautiful red. That is.
So yeah, that's a post office red, which is same enamel from the first release that we did. So,
could almost be like a RedBar red.
Yeah.
Could be.
I'll see myself out. Sorry.
That
is beautiful.
And these are the new Model 1s, is that right? Model 1 Mark II?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we also have the teal.
Oh, that's.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Each one is, you think you've seen the best, and then you see the best, but then you can go back and see the other one, and then that's the best.
Yes,
it's amazing work that you do. You know, I'm curious. I know that every one is unique, and every dial kind of has its own flavor. But how, once you have the process down for a particular color, how uniform is it across that line? Like if we were to have 2 or 3, say, of the teal together.
I can show it. So this is two other teal dials there. So I mean, that's kind of.
Might have to bring them up a bit. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
So
there's more variation with the Fumet dials, I think.
Right. No, but it's interesting to see because I know it's such a labor-intensive process. Each one is going to be unique, but it's interesting to see that you're still able to get that measure of uniformity there.
Yeah. It'd be a nightmare to have to photograph them all individually. That would be we wouldn't be thankful for that.
Don't.
Yeah,
they are beautiful though.
Yeah. Hey, Nikki, can you show us the Model 3 under that light?
Yeah.
Is that right? So I just want to show you guys. This is really special because this is Nikki touched on it before, but what we've done here is we've etched out the rest of everything that you see is blue was originally silver, and we've etched it out, put it down, you know, 0.5 millimeter, and filled it with enamel. So when you see this tilting in the light, there's no printing on this. This is all the numbers you can see is silver, and there's just gives these lovely sort of just reflects the light beautifully, I think. So that's a model that we have been working on for a very long time. That's meant to come out a little while ago, but it will be. It will be soon.
It's very.
I should have a. Give me a second. I might have a dial blank of it.
Is that that's gone into the? Did you say the Model 3?
Yeah.
And what size is that piece?
That Model 3 is very small. It's 33 millimeters as the first iteration, and then towards the end of the year we'll do a bigger one. But yeah, doing a very small one to start with is quite a nice way of making sure that it works as a range in the future. Because if you can get the proportions working when you're at a small diameter, then you know anything above that will be fine.
That's cool. Okay,
Yeah.
this is the etched with before you fill the enamel.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's cool. So we've got a couple of other questions. The one is, do you have any plans to release more Fumet colors for the Model 2?
No, we don't actually. Not at the moment, but we are going to be launching them for the Model 1 with different, I think some different colors. That's kind of, we're still working that out at the moment. So they may go on to the Model 2 range, but I think the Fumet dials really work better on the Model 1 because it's more of a dress watch, but we than the Model 2.
Okay.
But yeah.
And then another question, do you foresee something in a 39 or 40 millimeter case size in the future, or like a sport model, something like that?
Yeah, no, we got quite a lot of stuff that we're working on. There'll be the Model 3 will have a 39, and the Model 2 will also have a 39.5 mil version as well. And we've got prototypes they're not in the studio at the moment, but the case prototypes are with us, and they look really nice. So I think they'll be good models. And we've played around with kind of enamel bezels on more divey type watches since from about 2 years now, but we've never gone anywhere with it. But we're going back to looking at the idea of doing something that's like that. Just I think that the color you can get on some of the old diving watches, the bezel colors are just beautiful. We thought if we could enamel that, and then the thing is, you got to put sapphire on top of it. If you could do that, it could be really interesting. But there are obviously some challenges with that. But there's lots of different stuff we're kind of working on.
And so I have there's a lot of good feedback around that in the comments, just so but yeah, so I have a question. So you said you know you guys you're still working on some of this stuff, and I know none of us can predict anything at this point, but are you still able to ship watches? Do you have some new pieces that are coming out soon? What can
and we're operating, but there's just one person in the studio, so the output has gone down by quite a bit, but we're still going, and we've one of the things that we started to do when this lockdown started off was that we began, there's a company in Germany that we work with, or we're beginning to work with for bits, more for a movement project that we're looking at, but they make dials as their main business. So we've got some prototypes coming of dials which are not enamel, which allows us to kind of to produce more without having under the situation we're under just now. So those watches are going to be, it's quite nice because they produce some really beautiful dials for a lot of the Swiss and German companies. They kind of do Nomos, IWC, people like that, and there's some lovely stuff. So it's been quite nice to make dials which aren't enamel as a change for the kind of the design team. So we'll hopefully be getting those out in maybe 6 weeks as a first show of those, and they'll be much more of an entry point into the range or into the brand. So that'll be nice to do as well. And then the Model 3 that you saw, that should be in the next 6 to 8 weeks, I'd hope, because we've got everything for it. It's just refining the dial base so it's so it works perfectly, and Fumet Model 1's in probably a similar time frame as well. So there's stuff coming, hopefully.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you're still able to kind of continue moving forward, albeit a little bit slower in this current climate and what we're dealing with. We have a couple of, well, you have one more question. It's very specific. Can you do a Damascus steel dial with a light gray enamel?
That's a good question. Not one for me, I don't think.
We haven't. We've done some work on just standard stainless steel, but we haven't ever used any Damascus. I don't know. Is the honest answer. It's not something that we've experimented with. Yes, steel is possible to enamel on, but I think because of having the different compounds of steel to show that, I don't know if some it would stick to, some it wouldn't.
You can do it's stainless steel and high carbon steels are the ones you can enamel on. So I have no idea if Damascus comes under high carbon, but
so okay.
Sorry.
Just a very like I said, it was a very question. And you've got somebody that would like a red Fumet Model 1 in the comments. So just
nice.
Seems like there's some fans of the brand in the comments already. So that's good. Let's see if there's another question. Adam, David, do you have any other questions?
Do we have any questions?
Let me unmute myself. It was getting a little noisy in here. It's kind of a full house situation. Well, a question I had was, do you do commissions? If somebody comes to you with a very specific vision, obviously involving an enamel dial, is that something that you can accommodate, or?
It's something that we have done in the past, but what we found is that so a normal Model 1, for example, takes about 3 days of people's time to make. And when we've even just varied colors, because what Nikki was saying earlier about every color's got different firing times and different qualities, we found that they took about 10 days, so about two weeks to make. And so it becomes very, very expensive. If you factor in the time, even if you're not making any money on the extra time, it just makes it cost a lot. So it's something that we kind of push people away from doing. But I mean, we can do it, but they look very expensive compared to what we're doing normally.
All right, people. So don't bother them with that. But
I think it's just that when a normal when a normal one costs a certain amount, then right. if you're kind of quadrupling the time that goes into it, then people are probably taken aback. But then you're getting into the range of what a lot of enamel work costs, elsewhere. But it's just
exactly. I mean, then you're getting something unique for the price of what a traditional enamel piece would be from someone else. So it's it might be worth it for some people. But yeah, I was curious. Thank you.
Yeah, no, of course.
We have another.
I don't have anything particular in mind, but
okay.
I have some ideas. Question in the Q&A, do you have any plans to add any complication watches to your line?
Yes, we do actually. We do have some plans. We at the moment, because Solita's the main supplier that we work with for movements, and they've been shut recently, and before that there was a lot of supply issues with the whole ESSA situation, so we were kind of struggling to get things in a decent time frame. But we are working on that at the moment. There'll be a couple that will hopefully come through, but not in the next 6 months, I wouldn't say.
Okay, great, thank you.
Pushing our abilities in the studio as well.
Yeah, things like subdials are fun to do, aren't they, Nikki?
So yeah, I'm with a net challenging.
Yeah.
Another question, a question for Nick. Are you wearing the green Fumet?
No, I'm actually wearing the one-off. It's actually the sludge dial from the Model 1. So yeah, it's the speckled dial.
I think that's actually a good thing. Maybe it's worth talking about that sludge dial, because I remember, Lewis, you talking about that probably nearly a year ago now.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
What an elegant name.
The internal name. That was.
Yes, I like the name. It's a good name.
Yeah, I know. But it was actually, I think, Nick, it was your idea, wasn't it? I think.
So all enamel contains lead, so or majority contain lead. So you can't just chuck it down the drain when it's done. And all the enamels, when they come in, go through a process of being washed. So all that enamel that you keep, you generally use for your counter, because you can't see the back, and you just use kind of any random waste enamel that you've got. But because we were working on such a specific range of colors for the Model 1, our counter enamel was specifically made up of all those colors. So one day we had whatever counter we'd been using before, we had ran out of, and I thought, right, let's just start using this. And the three of us were like, that can't just be on the back, we have to put that on the front. And so yeah, this was actually the first one, the first sludge dial that we made was actually this Model 2 dial and Model 1 at the same time. So yeah, I mean, the color it is probably down to the fact that we were making majority of iron creams, and then I was working on a lot of black at the time, because black was being really temperamental. So yeah, the color actually probably is there's probably some person that could go in and work out the ratio of what color we were doing to what, because of the amount that's in it from washing that enamel the most. So yeah, it was just a happy incident that the enamels didn't merge into one color. They stayed this really nice speckle, and yeah, it happened to work in our favor.
It is a pretty cool dial, actually. I really like that. Another question, any plans on a two-tone dial?
Yes, that was actually one of the complications we were looking at, was using one of those. So the issue we're having at the moment is because enamel's thicker than a normal dial, getting movements or adapting movements to work with thicker dials is the issue we're kind of working on at the moment. But yeah, definitely, and they can look really nice. So that's something that we're hoping to be able to bring on.
I didn't show it earlier, but the first trip that Sally and Morna went to Warner Mound in San Francisco, they stayed on and went to it's called Clazzoni. It's another technique of enamel, where you basically build cells with silver wire. So this is actually one of Morna's samples from the course. But you can create these cells, so you can get different colors. But the issue is that you end up with a dial that's
yeah,
it's pretty thick.
It's really thick. So
yeah.
This dial is actually like 4 or 5 mil thick. So it couldn't go in a case. So Morna's, that's been her main kind of project while we've been in isolation, working at home. She's been experimenting with how thin she can get it, what she can do, working out what kind of designs we can do with that. So that's another way that we may do something with in the future. I don't know. We need to work it out, I guess.
Is any of the stuff she's been working on in the studio just now?
No, not that I know. I think she has it all in flat.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, but she's getting it down to the right thickness for watch dials, which is an achievement now. So that's something that we will be interesting to play around with as well.
So we've got a couple of folks. Well, the same person who wanted the red Fumet Model 1 wants a Model 2 sludge as well. And then a question for doing a purple Fumet dial with a GMT complication. So you're getting some design.
Right. Okay, yeah.
All right. David, Adam, do you guys have anything else? Any other questions?
No, other than, you could probably put me down for a purple Fumet GMT as well.
Nice. Well,
yeah, I didn't know I needed one until I just heard that. So thank you for making that suggestion.
Yeah.
What a fascinating look into what you guys do, though. It comes out beautifully. It's one of these things where I guess people just assume, oh, yeah, of course, here's a beautiful enamel dial. But it's not that easy, is it?
No, it is really fascinating process, especially since you guys are doing them one at a time. I think that's what makes it kind of, I think it makes it more special, because you are getting the kind of uniformity as we saw with the teal dials, but if you like, I think it makes it more special to know that this dial is actually one of, technically one of a kind, because it's worked on visually, and I think that is it kind of adds to the story. A lot of love to have a story watch it. And that's
no, it's like being the focus of one craftsperson. That's what I think is lovely about it, is that that dial's been the single focus of one person for a good many hours. So
it's someone shoving a tray of dials into a machine, kind of hope best, so yeah, that's I think that's really cool. So I guess my last thing would be, so we should you said somewhere around the 6 to 8 week time frame we should start seeing a few new things coming out from you guys.
Yeah, hopefully. I normally give that time frame all the time. If you'd asked me 8 weeks ago, I'd probably said the same thing. But we are getting close to it. It's just the edge of the kind of die at the moment is, it's like fractions of a millimeter off, and we're trying to get that back in. And how it should be in the next 2 or 3 weeks, so we should get stuff out, in 6 to 8 easily. But you just never know at the moment what's happening with like people closing down and all this stuff. But yeah, there are quite a few things that will be coming out, in early summer.
Okay, great,
fantastic.
Well, thanks very much for having us on. It's been and thanks for showing us, Nikki.
Thank you for
thank you for thank you for sitting in your car this whole time.
I'm away from the children's. That's why I'm here. It's not.
Yeah,
I'm not.
No, I understand. Trust me.
No, I'm out in. You can't see it, but over nice views over the Highlands here.
Oh, very. So yeah, thank you so much. Just then the recording will be on our YouTube channel by tomorrow at the latest. So that we can share that out. But thank you again for your participation, and thank you for showing us all your beautiful dials.
Oh yeah, thanks, much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you, Lewis. Thank you, Nikki.
Right.
Thanks, everyone.
Be safe, everybody.
You too.
Take care.